Hey everybody, welcome to Observe This. Now, let's introduce our guest here because I'm very interested in the naming convention here, which I'm sure everybody who talks to you, that's the first thing that they want to ask you, which is your radio name, Baby Huey. I know you as Baby Huey. I also know you as Danny. I don't know if we're supposed to give away your shoot name or not,
I
but
don't care.
but I want to introduce you correctly. Like you go by Baby Huey, correct?
Yeah, man. For coming up on 18 years, I'm like, I feel like Clark Kent and Superman. Like I have two identities. Like literally, no pun intended, with these glasses on. But yeah, I think more times than not, people call me Baby Huey or Hewster. I get called that more often now than my actual real name, Danny. Like Danny is just my family and friends now. So
Yeah.
I'm used to both. But yeah, whoever you feel comfortable with, I mean, I answer to both. So it's not
All
a
right.
big deal. I don't get
Yeah.
super like awkward, like, oh, call me Baby Huey only. It's like, I don't care. I think people realize Baby Huey's not my real name.
Right,
So
right.
it's,
Well,
but yeah, it's fine.
we'll get into the nickname here in a second, and or
Okay.
your radio. So the branding of what I'm doing here. So a few years ago, I got Dave Meltzer's blessing to do a show called Observe This, and this comes from 1995 WCW World War III pay-per-view. Hulk Hogan is upset at Big Dave for having information on Randy Savage's injury, and he tried to say that Dave was wrong, and the internet is in, brother, and so he used the term "Observe This," and so I thought, oh, there'd be a fun kind of video show, call it Observe This. John and I then went to F4W with our Fight Game podcast. And so I didn't really have a place to do this show anymore. And so we're putting out a lot of these interviews on the F4W YouTube channel. They get really any sort of long form thing gets lost on that channel because there's so much content hitting that channel. So I was like, oh, I'm going to pull it back. We're going to post the video show as an Observe This, and then we'll put the audio still on the tail end of the Fight Game podcast. So if you're listening to this on podcast, you're listening to Observe This, but just in audio form. And so we're bringing the show back, and the comeback show is with Baby Huey. Now, let's give you the proper introduction here, because Bay Area folks in San Francisco, San Jose, Oakland, they know you from the radio. But you also do a podcast, which we're going to get into in a second, and that fascinates me because you hit me up after I talked to my buddy Ben Cruz, who worked for The Ringer, and Ben also started in radio, and now he's working for a podcast company. So all three of us kind of have that in common. But you said 18 years, like give me your start. What is your origin story of working in radio?
Yeah, well, no, thanks again for having me on. So yeah, the origin of Baby Huey goes back, let's see, summer 2004. So I was transferring from Laney College in Oakland to UC Berkeley, and I was pursuing my mass communications degree. And during that summer, in between, I wanted to get an internship at a radio station. And I can say it now because they're no longer around. It was Live 105. I applied to be on their action team, the promotion team. Went through the whole interview process, everything. I did not get hired.
Wow.
I was so crushed. Like the radio station I grew up loving, Green Day's my all-time favorite band, Nirvana, all like the grunge and punk and rock bands, alternative rock bands I grew up loving. I was exposed through Live 105.
Did they also have Stern?
Yeah, and so at that point, yeah, Stern was syndicated through them. But I grew up with Alex Bennett in the morning through my parents and stuff. So I was super excited to apply and had the job interview process. Did not get hired. I was crushed. I was like, where am I going to work? Like, where can I get? Like, there's no other station in the market that I like. I was so heartbroken. But instead, I started working at CalX 90.7 KALX, Cal Berkeley's college radio station. Started doing that, going on the air, production, learning everything, all the different departments, building up my resume. Then the following summer, August 2005, I applied for a job at 107.7 The Bone, because by that point, they were around for about a couple years at that point, existence. And they were playing classic rock and all the bands that I also grew up loving that my Aunt Katie, introduced me to, all these different bands.
You're going to get a little Bay Area radio nerdy here. 107.7 previously was KSOL.
Oh, yeah.
And that was more of like a hip-hop, R&B kind of station.
And then remember for a while, it was Wild 107.7.
Wild 107, yeah.
And then they did the switch.
Wild 94.9.
Yeah, exactly. So I applied the following summer to 107.7 The Bone, and my resume was just that much more fuller, and just having all that experience in college radio, it showed I was interested. I want to pursue this as a career. Went through the interview process, boom, got hired, and started in the promotions department. While I started as a promotions intern, I used to go the rule was don't go into the studio till after 10 a.m. when Lamont and Tonelli were on the air. But I would just go in there at 9:45 and grab prize sheets and start small talk with them and everything, and just started being friendly with them. And then we just got the Niners that season on our stations, the broadcasting rights. And we had a big party down at Justin Herman Plaza, the Ferry Building. Alex Smith just got drafted, all that stuff. It was a big, to do. And while I was there, I introduced, myself to everyone there more and got more friendly. And I, told them I would love to do more with the morning show. And, I started interning with them by December 2005. And so I eventually switched over to the programming department. And then over time, snowball effect, after a couple of years, finally got full time with the morning show. So that was the quick, rundown of getting started with 107.7 The Bone.
By the way, John LaRocca is watching live, who is my partner for this show. He's actually live on this segment that is on his show, but we're pre-recording this, which is why. And John as well. So the interesting thing is, for me, is that your story and my story are completely flipped around.
Okay.
And so I go to KMBR and I want to be an intern, and I give him my resume, and Pat Olson is the guy, I forgot whatever his title was, program director, whatever it was, Pat Olson of KMBR. And I walk in and I'm like, here's my thing. And, there's like 6 or 7 dudes who want this internship. And stupidly, I didn't have a plan B. I didn't have a backup. And I think that they only hired 1 or 2 people. I want to say it was 1, but it's possible that it was 2. And then he's like asking me, why do I want it? What am I? All the normal questions. And so I'm like confident on the outside, but I'm petrified on the inside, because if I don't get this internship, then I'm half and I'm a semester behind in possible graduation. And it just I don't know why he hired me, but it lucked out, and I got it, and I was able to do that. But it's like so different from yours in that, here you were, you're like you're like putting stuff on your resume, and I was like, oh yeah, I just want this because I just want to be in radio. It's just like so stupid, right? It's like if somebody asked me how would you go into this, I would say, okay, have a few stations, have a backup plan. Make sure that people know you and know you're interested in doing this. And then, I just lucked out. So dumb. But okay, for people who are like, isn't this a wrestling podcast? We're gonna get there in a second. But I just want to set up Baby Huey's and just kind of the idea that you're a rookie essentially, and you're like, oh, I'm just gonna go shoot the stuff with these guys. And Lamont Tonelli, they've been together for over 20 years right now. But this is before, this is back before then. And you're just like wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, like, hey, what's up, guys? And they're probably like, who's this kid, man? What's going like? What was that early interaction like?
It was God, I can remember it in my head still, like walking into the studio. Like it was just such a rush to go into the air studio and into a room where these guys are having fun and entertaining the entire Bay Area. To me, it was such like a powerful tool. And, as a kid growing up in the 80s and 90s, radio was everything for me. Like, for anyone younger than me, maybe doesn't understand that, like growing up, it was like MTV, the radio, a record store,
Yep.
magazines, like that was your pop culture exposure. So radio was everything to me. So to be in a room and see where the magic is done, it was such a rush. And it was like, oh my God, just the adrenaline, everything. And but yeah, going in there, I would just like small talk. Hey, how's it going, guys? How's it going? Like, it was Mondays were my office day. So I would go in there every Monday, come in. I used to be all like button collared shirt and everything and be all proper. Go in there and say, hi, how's it going? I remember the first time I really talked to Tonelli at that Niner event. He said, oh yeah, I've seen you around. And then, Lamont was always, hey, how's it going? And Sully, who used to be on the show at the time, made friends with him. But I just made it a point to go introduce myself to everyone and just show that I was interested, helping out. What really set me on course with them was, so within the first couple months of my starting there, they had a big golf tournament, and they were known for their legendary golf tournaments. And I was working there at the golf tournament, helping out set up. And I was super excited because like there was like Hooter girls there. And I was like, oh my God, I want to be on the Hooter girls hole because that's where they're pouring beer and that looks like it's gonna be fun. Instead, they put me way out in the middle of nowhere in the sun, and I had to be the eyewitness for the hole in one.
Yeah.
So if you got a hole in one, you won a Camaro, I believe, or some car there. So I literally just sit there and just watch everyone tee off and watch if it's a hole in one or not. I'm getting sunburn. It's pain. Finally, they're like, okay, Danny, go ahead, go to this hole. And I knew it was the Hooter girls hole. I sprinted over there. By the time I got over there, the girls were gone. I just had to help clean up. I was so pissed. I was like, damn it. So I'm like cleaning up everything. And this guy comes up to me in this foursome and he's like, hey, you work at the radio station? I was like, yeah, I'm new. And he's like, Lamont Antonelli? I was like, yeah, I'm new. I see them around the halls and stuff. I heard they're a-holes. Is that true? And I said, no, I mean, they're always cool with me. But he kept like digging at me, asking me trying to give dirt. And I'm like, I'm not talking ass. Like, no, they're fine with me. They're really nice. And he said, I'm messing with you. I'm Lamont's brother-in-law.
Oh,
like,
wow. He's testing you.
Yeah. And then Lamont comes walking up right after laughing. I said, I heard my brother-in-law was testing you. I'm glad you didn't talk ass about me behind my back. I could trust you. I'm like, yeah. And I said, well, hey, if you ever need help with anything, I'd love to help out. And he says, well, we got to give you a nickname. We can't call you, Danny on the air. We got to give you something fun. I said, well, in high school, I was called Lurch because I was the tallest white guy on the basketball team. He's like, nah, that's, maybe something different. I said, well, when I was younger, my Aunt Katie used to call me Baby Huey because I remind her of the old cartoon. He's like, perfect. Howard Stern has Baba Booey, right. Baby Huey, just rolls off the tongue.
Right.
Boom. Been stuck with that now for the last 18 years. So, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So that's how and then I started helping out with them and I came in for help out with stunts and stuff. And so, like I said, snowballed from there.
So paying your dues is a big deal in radio. Like to be sort of the last, the last person in and the newest person, like that person has to pay their dues, just like any position. Like, in wrestling, you always hear that. Got to pay your dues. Got to pay your dues.
Yep.
And in radio, it's very much the same because radio has a long history of people working at the station for a long time, or you're an act that has been together for a long time and you're just hopping over to new markets. So longevity is a big thing, and so that is that is very interesting. Okay, so I asked this when I talked to Ben too, which is the wrestling fandom.
Mm-hmm.
How does your wrestling fandom fit with the radio gig? Like, are you hiding it or are you flaunting it? Like, because, the first thing someone is good, if they know that you like wrestling, they're going to go like, but it's fake. Like, why do you like something? Right. That's going to be the first thing. So how did that set or how did that fit with the folks at the radio station?
So what happened was, working at the local radio station, whenever WWE comes to town, they want to do local press to promote a Raw, SmackDown, a house show, whatever, promoting their event and just get, last minute ticket sales. I mean, usually they'll do a ticket giveaway or when tickets go on sale, they run commercials, all that stuff. A couple months out and then, maybe the week of another ticket giveaway and last minute commercials, just try to sell as many tickets as they can. So I remember I found out that Batista was coming in studio.
Wow.
And keep in mind, this is what, 2005. So,
he's giant.
Prime Batista. And so I heard he was coming. I was like, what? And I saw in the office a photo of Rey Mysterio, and I guess that was taken from the year before when he was in studio. So our station was known for just getting the wrestlers, superstars coming in studio whenever they were in town. So when I heard Batista was in, I was like, I want to go up there and meet him. So I forgot who I asked for permission, whatever. So I went up there, got to meet him, got to take a photo with him. And so like I have the photo still. I mean, I'm in my office wear at the time and I'm smiling with Batista, heavyweight champion. And that was awesome. So that's when everyone started knowing that I love wrestling. And, just office talk, some coworkers love wrestling as well, some don't. And that becomes like a backstage office conversation as well. Just defending wrestling's honor whenever I can.
Yeah.
And then, just over time, whenever WWE came to town and they would ask us, sales department, whoever, be like, hey, WWE's doing a buy or the venue's doing a buy for commercials. Do you want, an interview with so-and-so? And I would say, yes, we want it. We want the interview. And so, one time Kofi Kingston came in, Sheamus came in.
Yeah.
I've like so many, photos of guys coming in studio over the years. I talked to John Cena on the phone once,
wow.
Because I was like call screening. So I would talk to John Cena, put him on hold.
Yeah.
CM Punk, Jericho. So it's just either in studio or phoners, just wherever I can. So just over time, people realize how much I love wrestling. And then, WWE would hook it up with tickets to the show. So it's just, that's where it kind of initially all started. It was just them coming in studio and whatnot.
Okay, so there is promotion in radio. It's being a promoter, booking larger than life guests. That part I think really fits with pro wrestling. But me coming from like a hardcore sports background at KMBR, which is you're right next to it. It didn't really fit as well, though. I know Tom Tolbert knows Attitude Era stuff. I'll hear him do the rock stuff whenever he feels like it. My sort of mentor, Chris Townsend, who now does A's Cast, I think he does stuff for the Oakland A's, similar to this that we're doing. He does it for the A's. Because the A's don't have an actual station that they broadcast right now, do they?
I don't think anymore at this moment. I think it's all streaming, I believe.
Yeah.
And I know like San Jose Sharks, I think, have a similar situation. I'm sorry, not the biggest Sharks fan to know that, but I think more and more teams are trying to go more that streaming route instead of like a dedicated radio station.
So the sports stuff, they're going to be a little bit less, less open to the wrestling stuff. Though, like I said, Chris Townsend, he was doing like Macho King Randy Savage impersonations and stuff back in the day. But the radio stuff, the radio side that you did, it sort of fits to me. Like I feel like it fits really well to bring in the wrestlers who are going to come in locally and they want to sell tickets, to do radio hits and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It just with our morning show, just the type of morning show that we are, very fun, upbeat, loose, goofy, busting each other's balls. So, for me as a producer, I would do my best to kind of inform L&T, like who this wrestler is, trying to explain it because they don't watch, but I was trying to explain to them like, okay, this is a storyline going on. Here's some questions, because not only we're trying to promote the event, but, promote who they are, what they're, it's an extension of the show. We're just trying to promote, their storylines as well. So I would do my best to like inform, okay, they're going through this right now, and here's some questions and stuff. And, and then sometimes they would just ask their own set of questions and, goofy stuff as well, and trying to get a reaction out of them. And so, it's always a case-by-case situation with the interview. But for the most part, I think the wrestlers always have a lot more fun with us. KBR, depending, the show or the host or the program director, it was hit or miss what interviews they would do, because we would try to do like package deals too. So if a guest is coming in, they'll try to hit up multiple stations in our building. So sometimes sales department will like try to get us and KBR involved.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes the wrestlers worth their time to hit up multiple stations in one morning. I remember like one time our show was off on a vacation day, or whatever, but I was there running the board. The Miz and it was Alex Ryder, right? Yeah, his old sidekick.
Right.
Miz was WWE champion at the time. He went on KBR, and of course and he was a perfect guest for them because they talked the real world and stuff like that. I ran out in the hallway and I said, "Hey, I'm a big fan," and he says, "You want to hold the belt?" I was like, "Hell yeah!" And I hold that, that spinning belt. Yeah. That one, I got to take a photo with that. Super nice. But yeah, it was. So for us, yeah, it kind of fit the mood. Very lighthearted interviews. But at the same time, for me, I was kind of like, man, like, as great as it is, what we're doing and having fun, promoting the show, there was like part of me is like, oh, there's so many questions I would love to ask them.
Yeah.
And, there's things like I want to get into more. But I know, it's their show, and it's what you got to keep it kind of lighthearted, and you got to kind of keep it a little bit shorter, get back into the music and stuff, and play that whole radio game. But yeah, I was like, oh, there was times there's stuff I wanted to ask, but I was not at that point in my career yet where I kind of felt comfortable to do that.
Okay, so our Bay Area homegirl Bailey, my San Jose homegirl, I think she went to Independence High School, which is on the east side. I went to high school on the east side as well, Mount Pleasant. If she comes into town to promote Monday Night Raw, or maybe San Jose, or the Bay Area has a pay-per-view, is she going with you guys because she's local? Like, have you ever got to do stuff with her?
Oh yeah. So, I'm trying to think. We've talked to her a few times. On the morning show, talked to her on the phone. And then I recorded a separate phone interview with her once. And then when I first met her in person, I mean, this is outside when I saw her years ago at BTW when she first started. I've seen her back in the day, but as Bailey, the first time I met her, I went to the Aftershock Festival, big music festival in Sacramento. And at the time, NXT was doing wrestling matches there. So for a while, NXT would have running NXT like house shows at a music festival. Yeah. I remember, like, was it Corey Taylor and Baron Corbin got into it once at a festival, and that led to an angle on TV. So I went to Sacramento, and like I was excited for like all the bands, but the fact NXT was there, I was like, oh my God. So I remember that day I got to interview Bailey, Enzo and Cass, Finn Balor. Let's see, Samoa Joe was there. I didn't get to interview him, but I did go say hi. Let's see, who else did I talk to? But so that was my first time meeting Bailey in person, and I told Bailey, "Hey, I'm from the Bay Area. I know you're from the Bay Area." She's like, "Oh yeah, I remember the Bone." Because by that point she already moved to Florida, was getting her career going. But yeah, so that's how we initially met each other. Jump ahead, last March, I saw her at a BTW show. It was a memorial show for Kirk White, who was
big time wrestling for people who don't know.
Big time wrestling. Yeah, he was the owner who sadly passed away. They had a memorial show, and she was actually there because she, as we know, she was injured, and she's from here. She was staying back here in the Bay Area. So just a little nice coincidence, she was able to attend this show in his honor. And so I just went up to her and said, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me." And I introduced myself. She's like, "Oh yeah." And so we made small talk, and then we started following each other. She started following me on social media and stuff, and we did another video interview last year promoting a Bay Area show, and then I went to her toy drive, and so we've become friendly, professionally friendly with each other and stuff. So no, it's been cool to kind of get to know her on a more little personal basis.
I mean, you kind of, I don't know if it was a humble brag or if you glossed over that part like really quickly, but Bailey follows you on social media. That's kind of a cool thing, right?
Yeah, no, I try to keep it, not oversell it, but yes, it's pretty awesome. Like, it's cool when Bailey, Drew McIntyre, Jericho, like all these different wrestlers who I've interviewed at one point or another start following me, and I'm like, I'm like 10-year-old kid again. Like, oh my God, this is awesome. But I try to be cool. I'm like, gotta be professional and like Yeah, man, keep it cool. But no, but deep down, I'm like, this is awesome. Like, this is so cool. Like, if you would have told me as a little kid watching, the 80s and the new generation and attitude era that eventually one day I would build like some sort of professional relationship with these wrestlers, all that hard work and sacrifice and hustle was all worth it.
So where does the wrestling fandom come in? Like, how old were you when you first started getting into it?
Oh my God, a little kid. Oh God, like 6, 7 years old. I remember. So growing up I was born in 83. So when I was like 6, 7, like kind of old enough to kind of start processing, remembering what's on TV. Obviously WWF. I mean, I was a fan of Ultimate Warrior. My brother Tommy loved Hulk Hogan. So WrestleMania
Battle.
6. Yeah. So I remember like I loved the Bushwhackers as a kid. I don't know why. I mean,
every kid loved the Bushwhackers.
Yeah, I mean, like all the 80s, and growing up here, as you know, on the West Coast, like WWF is what I was exposed to. And then like by early 90s, when we finally got cable in our house, I was able to watch TBS and start watching WCW. And then, just from there, once I hit like middle school and high school, the Attitude Era was off and running, just being able to watch Raw and Nitro. Luckily, on our old cable plan, we got Nitro East Coast time, so I could watch Nitro first, and then just watch Raw after. So I didn't have to like channels flip back and forth. It was like 5 hours of wrestling every Monday that I could tune in for and do my homework while watching.
So you have a podcast called In the Kliq, and you are you have that podcast at the same time while working in radio. Is there any like headbutting when it comes to that? Because radio is radio, and this is how you do business, and you sell ads, and there's commercials, and we run a show, and podcasting is like sort of this long form interview stuff, which it wouldn't work on a morning radio show. Like, how does that work out for you, the podcasting versus radio thing?
Okay, so I'm trying to think how I can sum all this up. It's been a journey, I could say. After being at the station for so many years, I realized I was at a point where I wanted to have more of my own body of work, content, create my own content. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm forever grateful to Lamont and Tonelli for everything they've done for me, to be under their wing. The job security with them has been nothing but amazing. They've taken care of me so well over the years. But I know that's not going to last forever.
Sure.
And so I don't want to be a day where, it's eventually gone and not have a backup plan or have something of my own that I could present, for future jobs or whatever the case may be. That's mentally where I was at. And so I really wanted to start branching out and being a little more independent and creating my own content. And I was like, what can I do? And, keep in mind, about 10 years ago, I want to say roughly, give or take a few years, podcasting started taking off. I mean, podcasting, it was very in its infant stage, and not a lot of people knew what it was or how to do it correctly. And I didn't know as well. I remember it was at a certain point where, we get a lot of guests offered to us.
Sure.
And not everyone we agree to do the interview with, just because for various reasons, either like the date and time doesn't work, maybe the hosts don't know who they are, or whatever the reason may be, they just can't do it. Eventually there was a point where it's like, I know who this person is. I could do an interview with them. I mean, if this person's being offered, I'll do the interview. I always would ask L&T first, you want to talk to this person? Like, nah, we don't want to talk to them. I was like, okay, I will talk to them. So eventually I got to a point where it's like, okay, if there's any leftover interviews or interviews that's available that no one else wants to do, I'll start doing it.
And this sounds a little callous, but radio time is very valuable when you're doing a morning show. It's about ratings. You don't want people to change that channel. So to Lamont and Tonelli, if they go, I'm not sure that person is going to connect with the audience, I'm not sure we can do a good 5 minutes, we don't want people changing the channel, that's why they would say no. Not because they're just like big timing people. It's about ratings and radio.
Correct.
You're measured, by the minute to hold listeners.
Absolutely. So, And then, I started seeing at the time in radio, a lot more stations around the country start doing podcasting in various forms. Like, a morning show might do an extra bonus, segment that will put out as MP3 for their listeners, or extra interviews, or other members of the show outside of the main host would do like a specialty show. So I saw like this podcast world take off in the radio sense. I was like, I kind of want to do that too. So I started doing a podcast with some coworkers of mine. We called it The Other Guys. And it was just because we were the other guys, not the big name hosts on the station. We're like the young upcoming guys.
Yeah.
And that was just a lot of fun. We would just mess around.
Kind of like what Stern does with the after show, right?
Exactly. I mean, oh yeah, absolutely. The after show was like a big inspiration. I mean, I grew up loving Howard Stern. So a lot of stuff he would do, I saw a lot of people kind of copy that in some capacity. So I started wanting to do with that, I want to start doing interviews. And so, I started doing, band interviews and wrestling interviews. And it became a point where like certain wrestlers would be available and maybe other people couldn't do it. And I was like, I'll do the interview. So I started just recording interviews, and I've already had kind of connections with WWE's PR team when they would come in studio and making connections with them. But what really set it off was WrestleMania 31 was in the Bay Area at Santa Clara at Levi Stadium. They had what's called Radio Row, and they had different media outlets set up there doing interviews all morning. And I was asked if I want to participate. And I was like, hell yeah. So I brought my equipment, set up, and started doing interviews there. And I do want to shout out, I did a lot of wrestling interviews at the time with my old podcast co-host, James Kincaid, aka Bimbo Jimbo.
Yep.
James Kincaid, a lot of people might know him. He's the main commentator for West Coast Pro Wrestling out here in the Bay Area. He did some stuff with All Pro Wrestling, works for the United Wrestling Network in LA. He now does stuff with Circle 6 as well. He's one of my best friends. So when I started getting offers to do wrestling interviews, he was my buddy from KMBR. He worked at KMBR, and so
I didn't know he worked at KMBR.
Oh, that's
interesting. We have traded DMs back and forth before, but
okay,
the KMBR piece. You know what? Maybe he did tell me KMBR. I'm trying to remember, but no, that's fascinating. Keep going.
Yeah. So he was a producer at KMBR, and he also was inspired to be on the air, as now he's following his dream of doing commentary for wrestling. So we shared this passion for wrestling, and when I started getting wrestling interviews, so he joined me on the Other Guys podcast, and that's how we kind of developed our chemistry with each other. And then eventually he was like, hey, I'm going to do this interview. You want to do it with me? He's like, yeah, sure. So we would start doing these wrestling interviews together. And, I would put them on the website, podcast them out. Eventually we were at the point it was like, we should do a podcast together. Like not just interviews only, like let's do an actual weekly podcast where we talk about the wrestling highlights and news and stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's when we started In The Kliq. And that was the summer 2018. I remember it was SummerSlam 2018 was our first episode, our first review. And so, we started doing that together. So we would do interviews, and then the weekly podcast. And that's how it just kind of started. And we started doing that for a couple years together. But I was going to say, so WrestleMania, we went down there and we did all these interviews together. It was awesome. It was like the first time on my own with Jimbo, branching off and doing my own thing. And it was like it was nice not to be not to humble brag, but to be in the producer, the guy in the background, to be now one of the hosts doing all these interviews. And
but here's the smart thing. And I'm going to tell people what the smart thing is Baby Huey. He knows how to record the stuff, so he doesn't need to bring a producer. He doesn't need anybody. He's got his recorder. So that's why they're going to ask you to do it, is because they know that you're going to do it by yourself, and they don't need to ask anyone to he's going to do it. He's going to do it right. And then he's going to put it up. We're going to let him do something that's going to be fun for him. But at the same time, it's not like it costs them much to send you out there. It's like, oh, he's going to do the content. We don't need to send anybody else. He knows how to do this stuff. That is the media lesson, though, when it comes to this stuff, because anybody who when I was growing up in journalism, it was starting to be like this, which is you're lucky if you had someone to help you with lighting. You're lucky if you had someone to help you shoot the thing. And so you had to sort of be this quasi just utility person with
Yes.
everything. So to be able to send you out there, they knew that, okay, he's going to do everything because he doesn't need us. And that's what makes you valuable in that moment.
Absolutely. And that's like, for anyone who wants to hit me up for questions or advice, I am totally down to help out. I always love paying it forward. But yes, number one rule, invest in yourself, but more specifically, invest in your own equipment. Have it so you'll be on call, ready to go. Like, for the video viewers right now, I got my Zoom H6. I bought this literally a couple weeks before WrestleMania 31, did all my interviews on this, and I've done all my interviews remotely to this day with this. Every WrestleMania, music festival, even in the background here in my home office, I got my little tripod and iPhone holder that's how I did my interviews in Dallas last year at WrestleMania on that thing. So yeah, like I said, invest in yourself in equipment. But yeah, like I said, so that WrestleMania 31 did all these interviews, and that was the beginning of like WWE knew, like they saw me doing all those interviews that morning, so they knew like they could trust me and that I will do a good job, or to me a good job of doing these interviews and be professional and ask the right questions.
Yeah,
and,
you're not
play,
gonna
like, the politics.
You're not gonna ask whomever they would have given you at that point. I don't even know, but you're not going to ask
Charlotte. Charlotte was NXT champion at the time. Or she just lost it, I believe. Yeah.
You're not going to ask them dumb questions. You're not going to ask them about, when you throw a punch and you slap your leg at the same time. Like, you're not going to do that. So they know your body of work, and they know you're going to ask smart questions, and so they'll just make people available for you.
Yeah, no, exactly. And like I said, the very first time WWE asked me to do an interview on site I was telling you this the other day, was that summer 2014 where they were announcing WrestleMania coming the following year.
Yeah.
They had a house show at the SAP Center in San Jose, and it was like a summer tour or something, but Ric Flair and Big E were available to do interviews. And they were like, "You want to record?" I was like, "Hell yeah." But I was scrambling for equipment, and luckily at the time, our engineer gave me a microphone that could plug into my old iPhone at the time and gave me a program. So I recorded these interviews with Ric Flair and Big E, my first interviews ever on my own, on my old iPhone. And my brother, I love my brother Tommy, he's always been my biggest support, helping me out. He was filming on his iPhone the video, and then we edit it later. And so then that's why, jump ahead a few months later, when WrestleMania came through, I made sure to buy the proper equipment, get ready for that season. And then ever since then, I have my own equipment. I'm on the go, mobile whenever needed. So yeah, ever since then, just be doing, interviews wherever I can. And just, I love it. I love doing all that stuff.
To kind of give an example, the people who are listening to this, Brian Alvarez, runs this website. And when I first started helping out Dave, they sent me on, I think they sent Dave and I to Los Angeles. We were, there was a New Japan show that was going to be on Access TV. And, right where that LA, where the Staples is, that they had an office there. So they sent us out there, and I'm supposed to help record this interview with Kazuchika Okada. And I don't really have any equipment. I have a recorder, not as good as the one that you had, but I didn't know the whole mic input thing. I'm like, I'll just throw this thing in the middle and it'll just pick up. And so, I put those interviews up, and Brian's like, okay, it's fine, but I'm going to send you something better. So he sent me something similar like yours. And okay, now I'm going to send you mics, and then send the mic plugs. And okay, now, this is going to get the level of sound that the website, that I can do. So that was also a learning experience, because I was like, oh man, I kind of feel not really prepared now that I see what I needed to do. And then quickly, you got to learn how to use that equipment. You got to learn how to, how to mix it correctly, And so it's, there was some learning experience for me too. Even I was only doing it sort of, as a passion to help Dave, but very quickly I figured out, okay, the way that I'm doing it is not great.
Well, the other thing too, keep in mind, like, perception is reality. Like, if you're going to interview a wrestler or whoever, you want to be courteous of their time, but as best you can, look professional, look the part. I see like this the trend now on social media, like people with these little microphones and they're talking to people, and it's like, to me, I'm like pulling my hair out. It's like, that looks bad. Like, I'm so old school. Like, I got like extra microphones in my office here. Like these are my microphones I take with me to WrestleMania. Like, these are high end microphones and cables and recorders. And so you want to look professional, like look like you're part of an actual like professional broadcaster, and so that way they feel like I'm you're courteous to their time, and they feel like they're doing a proper interview, and not like some just random person who's like BSing or something. So
absolutely.
that's my big thing, is like look the part as well.
100%. I it's funny because I was going through my photos the other day, and I was looking for a specific. I think I was looking for. We had interviewed Kota Ibushi at one point, and so I was like, "Where did we do that?" And so I was kind of looking through my iPhoto app on my Mac, and I think you could search by location. And I was like, "Where was that? Was that in Vegas?" And so I'm like, kind of just looking up all my Vegas photos, and it's like, no, it's not there. And somehow I clicked on the Las Vegas photos, and I found the first time. So I don't know if you were there, but AEW in 2019, so February of 2019, they did what was their first ever pre-sale ticket party in Vegas. And it was in the middle of the week. So Dave, I took one day off of work. Dave and I flew out there. We slept like 3 hours, and then we flew back home, and I missed like a half a day of work, I think. And so I'm looking through these photos, and I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah, we interviewed Kenny Omega that night. And so what happens is, and I don't know if you've done this kind of thing, but they have these scrums for the reporters and for the content creators. And so Dave and I are there, and we're walking, and I'm like, oh, there's the media. And so I'm thinking like, okay, we're supposed to go hang out with the media there. And he's like, he doesn't even answer me, but I'm like starting to walk, and he just starts walking the other way. And so I'm like, okay, he smells something. He knows what's going on. So I follow him. He just walks down where all the AEW wrestlers are as they're waiting for this ticket party to start. And, you see him, and, oh, hey, what's up, Dave? And Cody's there. Kenny's there. The Bucks are there. That at that time, I didn't even know what Tony Khan looked like, but he was there. That was the first time we ever interviewed Tony, and Tony was so nervous. He was sweating. He wouldn't look us in the eye, and I think it was because he was not able to really answer our questions, because he couldn't say anything, because it would have been spoiling like a lot of their plans. They hadn't even started. This was their first show. They didn't even start the TV show yet. And so, I don't know how familiar you are with these other media folks, but, Ryan Satin's there, and he's kind of bothered because, he's part of this scrum, and he's not able to get these guys one-on-one. And so I was there to take video of the press conference to upload it to the F4W YouTube or Twitter channel. And then I was going to go back with Dave, and then we were going to do interviews. But I just remember Satin was like, what the heck? Like, they don't let us interview anybody. And then little did he know that I was like, oh, Dave and I get to interview Kenny and Tony Khan one-on-one. And I was like, whoops, like that's probably, he's going to not be happy that we got to do that. But yeah, that whole, the whole thing of just I had, with all my radio experience, I didn't really have a lot of experience with just going like recorder, mic, go on, just on the road, just pick it. Like, I'm just going to ask you these questions. So that was really, a really good opportunity in doing that. And now, we just interviewed Adam Cole the other day, and I was just like, wow, if you sit these guys down and you ask them quality questions and they're into it, they give you such thoughtful answers. And I kind of now you get to do this. So I'm going to ask you about this now. You get to do the WWE stuff, which we don't get to do. They don't want WWE. They don't allow WWE to talk to us. But because you guys are local radio, you get to do that stuff. So how, like, I know you've interviewed AEW, you've interviewed WWE. Like, do you attack those interviews a little differently, knowing that maybe the WWE stuff is you kind of need to be a little more storyline, whereas AEW, maybe you don't have to be?
I will say this, and for anyone listening, please know, like, interviewing wrestlers is probably one of the toughest type of interviews you can do compared to like a musician, an actor, actress, comedian, because wrestlers are playing a character more or less. So it's a very fine line, or there's a lot of gray area of how do you approach this interview?
Yeah.
Do you ask them questions more or less in kayfabe to what you see on TV and just play the game of more or less you're an extension of what's going on TV, like, backstage interviewer Byron Saxton on Raw. Right. You're kind of just asking like those basic questions just to kind of help tell the story or promote the storyline that they're in? Or do you kind of go a little bit more deeper and kind of ask them, questions that maybe will pull back the curtain a little bit and reveal a little bit of the magic? It depends on the person. It's a case-by-case situation as far as who you interview, their mood, the type of character they are, how much they want to protect the business. So it's very tough. It's like I said, case by case. Some people who are very like professional and very by the book and give very PR friendly answers and, positive, upbeat answers. Like, I interviewed Bianca Belair. Love talking to her. She's awesome. A big fan of her. But her answers when I interviewed her were very professional and just kind of straight to the point and just kind of, like, I'm trying to think how I could say it. Like, it was just really playing the game of like what's on TV, and she was very positive. But like, someone like a Cody Rhodes or Jericho. I'm trying to think of someone else who I talked to that like had no problem kind of revealing a little bit what went behind the scenes.
Sure.
Jericho's very open about everything, it feels like. And, he would tell, like I said, open up like the magician revealing a little bit of the magic. And so it's really about case by case. And so it's just tough. You just got to kind of play the game. And that's something I kind of know going into it when I do my research. I'll research a guest and kind of see how they handle themselves in other interviews, see what questions were asked, what worked, what didn't work, and how to frame my own questions. And so it's tough because I feel like in an interview, depending how much time you got, there's only so much room you can like get an interview going, get that rapport with them. And maybe when you get each other comfortable, maybe they're willing to open up more. But then unfortunately, time runs out and you I was just getting going here. I won their trust. But, for me, it's like, number one, you got to promote what they're promoting and like get through that. And then by doing so, are you promoting like a storyline with that? What they're going through at the time on TV, just play the game of like what's going on. And then maybe like, later ask a question, maybe about a previous storyline, how that story came to be. And if they're willing to kind of explain a little bit like whose idea was it, who did what. And then you kind of learn more about like behind the scenes, how things work. So, and then like, like I said, it's, oh, there you go. That's awesome.
Yeah. So for video folks, this is the photo, and this is still, so that's the recorder that I still have.
Yep.
And then those are the Shure mics that I've had for now. Gosh, because that was like 5 years ago.
Yep.
So the it's the same equipment. It works. It's clutch. And this is the first time that we ever interviewed Kenny Omega. I think we've done him twice, to at least 2 or 3 times in most thoughtful interview wrestling interview that I've ever done. Bryan Danielson right there. Adam Cole was right there as well. But yeah, no, go back to what you were saying. I didn't even. I was trying to test and see if that would work.
Well, no. So, and I'm kind of bringing that up because keep in mind for the fans out there who are watching various creators, interviews with different wrestlers, I kind of get mad when people get critical. Oh, why'd you ask this? Why didn't you ask that? And it's like, you're not in our shoes of asking these questions and kind of how to play that game with the wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's certain things they're just not going to answer, or they're not going to spoil anything. So even for me, like I've been lucky enough to interview Tony Khan 4 times now.
Yeah.
And I'm at a point now where I kind of know he's in promo mode all the time. He ends every answer with promoting and tune in Dynamite this week, tune in the Rampage this week, or the pay-per-view this weekend. But what I'm saying is there's certain questions you want to ask. You got to accomplish. You're the middle person. You're the middle person between the wrestler and the product and the fans. You're promoting this wrestler, you're promoting their brand, the show, whatever, to the fans. So hopefully they'll tune in and keep, become a fan, long term, all that stuff. And vice versa. You're representing the fans, trying to ask questions that they want to know the answers to. And I feel like that's such a powerful position. Like, I think that's the old school influencer. You're that middle person. That's what I love about radio. You're that middle person between, it's like the next best thing being a rock star.
Yeah.
And so with that being said,
except the opposite sex is probably not into you as much as they would be a rock star.
Exactly. Yeah, no, totally.
Or the same sex. It doesn't matter either way.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like when it comes to like interviews, it's tough because you're trying to play that game. And, for me, like, I'm trying to maintain good relations with the PR team and stuff. And, I have their trust to interview all these big names and I want to do right by them. So, but at the same time, I know I want to ask questions that people find interesting and get content. And, we'll make headlines on different news websites and all that stuff. So it's very tough. So please, to like wrestling fans out there, listen, I know not every interview is going to be great, but, keep in mind the person interviewing them, there's only so much they can do with the wrestler. Cause I feel like they're one of the toughest type of people to interview.
So you did get, you were part of the news cycle from what I remember from your last interview with Tony Khan. I saw the In the Kliq podcast, asked Tony this, and I don't even remember what you asked, but I was like, oh yeah, that's good. You got the people were listening, and then they found bits and pieces of that became newsworthy.
Yeah. I mean, I like going to that last Tony Khan interview, I was kind of like stuck. I'd be honest, like when I got offered the interview, I wrote back right away, yes, I'll do it. And then I was like, what do I want to ask him? Like what? Yeah. But then luckily, because it was set up in December, and I think it was like that first week in January. Luckily, by that point, AEW had so much news going on between FTR stuff, the Sasha Banks, Mercedes stuff. Adam Cole just returned. And luckily, what happened, I lucked out because that interview was supposed to be the first week of January to promote the new stage of Dynamite and Rampage, but they pushed it back a week, which was awesome because the following week, I had much more stuff to refer to because that first Dynamite in January, that Wednesday, that's when Adam Cole returned. So I had so much more stuff to refer to, and I got to see the stage, on TV, and got to ask him about the stage. Like I said, that was my first set of questions about the stage because that was the original premise for the interviews. Like he wants to promote Dynamite, Rampage, the new stage. So I take care of that business first, and then I go ahead and ask more stuff that I'm interested in. Yep. And, FTR had their podcast going and talking about their future. So I lucked out that all this content at the end of December, early January started coming out. So it made the interview like go by so fast. So yeah, just being aware of all that stuff.
So when you get to do these interviews, these WWE and these AEW interviews, do you get to brand that stuff in the Kliq, or is that just, does that go on the Bone website? So,
like, to make a comparison for anyone out there who maybe follows like Chris Van Vliet's career and,
CVV,
and hear some of his interviews, where he does an actual interview, people are interviewing him and he explains his history of broadcasting. He has a TV background, got really going in Florida, I believe, doing Miami. TV down there. Yeah. And so he was doing interviews for the TV network that he was working for. And then he would take that interview and then repackage it onto his own stuff, his own website, YouTube channel. And that's how that kind of grew. So I kind of do a similar thing, like a little bit of a smaller scale in radio, but that's my thing. Like the interviews I do or get is through radio, like either radio tours, which is a guest will sit somewhere and call in a bunch of different radio stations around the country in like a 2-hour window. And that's why usually my interviews with different people are usually 10 to 15 minutes because that's just the lot of time I get with that person. And so, these interviews I book through 107.7 The Bone. I do the interview and then, I'll put it on the station website. I'll podcast it out. We'll put it on the Bones social media, my social media. I'll tell my coworkers about it. They'll promote it on the air. Be like, hey, Baby Huey did an interview with Tony Khan, AEW owner, talked about X, Y, and Z. And oh yeah, new episode of Dynamite's tonight at 8 p.m. So that way they get their plug still. So that's really important to me. It's like, I'm doing these interviews off air, and then, I put it out on my own podcast feed, but I put it on the station website, station's social media. My coworkers will promote. And then, when I have my own DJ shift, I promote it as well. I'll promote it multiple times. So I'm getting their plugs out there. And sometimes, depending, what time I have, I'll try to replay parts of the interview on air as well. So I really try to go above and beyond, satisfying the guests and what they're promoting and over delivering. Mm-hmm. So that way, I'm doing right by everyone, especially who I book stuff through. But like I said, it's very similar to like what Chris Van Fleet did. He would do his TV interviews for his TV show.
Deco Drive was the show.
Is that what it was? Yeah.
I remember it because one of my best friends, she did it before, and then I think he came in after her. Deco Drive. Yeah.
So that's the same thing. Yeah. I would just, like I said, repurpose stuff. And that's the great thing about podcasting. You can do stuff for one network or whatever, and then repurpose it for your own stuff as well.
All right. So I'm going to let you go here in a second, and I want to save some time so you can get your own plugins so you can talk about it in the Kliq.
Okay.
Out of all of the interviews that you've done, now you're telling me you're going back to 2014. So that's okay. That's a lot of years there. That's 9 years of being able to interview people in the wrestling business. Is there one that sticks out as either your favorite or maybe the one that you got the most kudos about, or just something like what if someone asks you about, oh yeah, you did this thing, like what's the one that you're going to tell them a story about?
I mean, that first one with Ric Flair was special because he's the Nature Boy. He's arguably the greatest wrestler of all time. And so my first solo interview by myself with Ric Flair, and I kind of, I wasn't confident in myself at the time. And, I would kind of hate to listen to it now. But
yeah. By the way, all of us who do that, we don't like listening to our own stuff. Because we know we're going to critique ourselves and we're going to say, God, why did you say that word? Why did you say so many times?
Yes.
Why did you say look when it's radio? You can't look in radio.
Yeah. I did the interview. And then he left, and he did some other interviews in that same room. Uh-huh. Was it Mark Allen? I think he's a TV host in Sacramento who came down to do the interview. After Ric Flair left, he came up to me and said, "Man, that was really good. You know your stuff." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm just a big wrestling fan." Yeah, like to get that compliment, that just helped boost my confidence.
That's very cool.
One that like early on, was Cody Rhodes. I'm wearing my Cody Rhodes shirt right now, brand new, off the press merch. But I love Cody Rhodes because I've been meaning to release this, so and I can talk about it now. It's not a big deal. So when I'm recording an interview off air, I'll hit record and someone will patch through, be like, "All right, so and so is available," and then I'll say hello. And when I was interviewing Cody promoting Rhodes to the Top on TNT, the lady says, "All right, here's Cody," and I said, "Cody?" And he's like, "What's up, you stupid prick?"
What?
Like he knows me.
Okay.
Like he's known me for so many years, so he's just busting my balls. I love Cody. I always thought about releasing that clip. I mean, I cut it out because before like the interview started. Because I was like, I hit the record button and I said hello, and but I love Cody, and I'm so happy for him right now. He's always been really good to me. So when I did WrestleMania 31, did Radio Row, I did an interview with him that morning as Stardust. Yes. And it was a fun interview. And, I was going
to was he in character?
Oh, absolutely. In character. James Kincaid was with me. And we asked Cody or Stardust. He's like, "Hey, Baby Huey has a nickname. I want a nickname. People at work call me, Jimbo." And he's like, "Well, maybe call you." I should release that clip too. But like Cody as Stardust says, "Maybe call you Dirty J," or he's like, Jimbo was trying to be funny. He's like, well, you guys are Rhodes, and you know, you got Gold Dust and Stardust. Can I be Mike Dust? And Cody's like, oh, you want to be a Dust? He's like, yeah. He's like, but call me Jimbo. And he's like, we'll call you Bimbo Jimbo. So Bimbo Jimbo was named by Cody.
There you go.
But you know, jump ahead a couple years later when he left WWE and he did his first APW show here in the Bay Area. Jimbo and I went to the show and we went up to him and he's like, Baby Huey, Jimbo. Like, I was shocked he remembered us.
It's good. He's good, right? Like that's why he's good.
He came up and he told the handlers, like, these guys interviewed me at WrestleMania. Like, I was shocked. Like, he remembered me, a random nobody. Like,
wait, was that at the APW show?
APW show, that first one in Pacifica, I believe,
okay.
That first year or within like the first couple months after he left WWE. But he was like, hey, and we took photos, and he had a good little run with APW with the Cap House and stuff. So every time I saw him, we would say hi. And so, needless to say, when I do interviews, the media scrum, like I did that New Japan Pro Wrestling media scrum at Treasure Island, and Cody and Brandy were in a room, and I went in there and I went to ask a question, and Cody's like, "What's up, Baby Huey?" Like, it just, so I love Cody, and that's
I was there. I was at that press conference. I remember.
Yeah, I love how professional he is. Like, he remembers me to this day still, and he just he always busts my balls, and so I love Cody. I'm so happy he's all the success he has right now in WWE, and knock on wood, he dethrones Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, and I wish him nothing but the best. So I'm glad we're at a point now where he can bust my balls anytime, and I totally know he's having fun with me. So, but Cody Rhodes, Jericho, I become friendly with the Jericho whenever he comes to town with Fozzy or something. We always hang out. So Chris Jericho's interviews are always so much fun. I've interviewed Drew McIntyre the most, I think like 8-9 times.
Wow.
So I joke with Drew McIntyre, like, we should do like our own podcast together or something. But those are like the ones, that really stand out to me. So I could go, I have so many stories about each one. I know I'm rambling here, but
no, it's great.
I have so many stories. Yeah.
Okay. So I just thought of one more thing before we get out of here. John LaRocca has been on In the Kliq with you a bunch of different times.
Yeah.
John LaRocca also booked APW out here for Marcus Mack, and then APW like a while ago, but just recently. And he did Premiere out in Gilroy, and they did some shows in San Jose. So how did you meet John, and like how did you really get to know John?
So it was just was it just like on Twitter, I think? Because for me, as I was trying to progress into the wrestling podcast landscape, I was using Twitter and social media just to see other content creators, podcast hosts, wrestling journalists, see what they're doing. And I was seeing what other people are saying stuff, and I somehow came across John LaRocca's Twitter page, and I love all his tweets about various wrestling shows, his critique, and I was like, that's really good. Like, I love John's criticism of wrestling shows or feedback or how he analyzes stuff, because he uses like his Booker mind and, old school mind as well. And like kind of breaking stuff down, like a more common sense type of thing. And so I started following him, and then, we started exchanging messages, and he's, him and his family listen to The Bone as well. And he said he saw me at APW shows. Yeah. And so we just started connecting there and then started hanging out. And just kind of, like I said, snowball from there as well. Just, he's become like a great friend of mine. And like, I respect and love everything you guys do together as well. You guys have an amazing show. And but also you, man, like all the shows that you do with, we're Live Pal, like all that stuff. Like, I'm so like, it's awesome everything you get to create. Like here I'm kissing your ass now, but but I really do respect everything you do. That hustle, like I admire that, and that kind of motivates me as well. Like everything like you do with John Meltzer, Andrew, like everything. I'm like Denise, all that stuff. Like that is awesome. Like, and I respect that, and I would love to get to a point like that myself. And I always tell people I'm down to help collaborate with anyone, whoever needs it.
No, I appreciate that. It's what you said, which is it's a hustle. Yeah. Because and just not, this is not patting myself on the back in any way, but the reason why we're doing the show this late is because I actually had to go in the office today. And so my commute from Sunnyvale to San Francisco, like I left the house at 7:15. I don't walk into the office until almost 9:00. Like it's a long commute.
Oh,
So then coming home, it's the same thing. So I was like, I want to do this with Baby Huey. How can I do it before John and I record? And I was like, well, I'm just gonna have to do it Tuesday night after I get home from work, after my wife goes to bed. And so, at the same time, I did get to think about some of the things I wanted to ask you for the whole day. I didn't spend the entire day thinking about it, but it's like, okay, I'm driving here a little bit. I'm thinking of questions and stuff. So but it is absolutely a hustle. And you mentioned a name that really personifies that, which is Denise Salcedo. And, she is very popular on Twitter, on Instagram, all of her shows. And yet, like, she wants to go not just one level, but she wants to go 2 levels and possibly 3 levels and really make this like her life. Right. And so it's you look at that woman and she goes, and not everyone's going to like her content or her personality, but what you can't knock, like one of our greatest American philosophers, Jay-Z, once said, you can't knock the hustle, right? You just that's what you just ultimately respect no matter what. So, you're doing stuff on the side, like everyone is doing it. I'm not doing this as my job. I'm doing it as a passion. I'm doing it because I like it, because I enjoy talking to people like you. And I'm like, oh, if I'm going to talk to Baby Huey, let's just record it and see if someone wants to watch it or someone wants to listen to it. Because you and I would just have this conversation if we were in person. It'd literally be like the same conversation.
Well, I by the way, though, thank you for that as well. I would love to have this conversation in person. I want to attend one of those Dave Meltzer TV watch parties. LaRocca has filled me in how great those are. Like, I want to hear LaRocca's viewpoint or feedback instantly right there. I want to hear Meltzer's review. Like, be in the room, be a fly on the wall. But
dude, just let me know whenever you want to come through.
But Denise as well, like I first kind of met her at SummerSlam Las Vegas about a year and a half ago. And then I saw her again at WrestleMania in Dallas, and we were up in the press box, and I just went up to her and introduced myself. And I just told her, like, flat out, listen, I just want to give you kudos. I respect your hustle and, all the hard work. I love everything that you do. And she started kind of like, tearing up a little bit just for him. And she's like, thank you. That means so much to me. She gave me a big hug. And like, it's just, if anything, as crazy as the wrestling landscape is and the fan base, I try to be positive as much as I can, because I think we need more of that positivity. I think you could be critical on certain things without like destroying something and burying it and, just adding to that toxic environment. I think you can have a positive critique on stuff. Hence why I like LaRocca's stuff. Like, he knows how to break stuff down. And, maybe you should have told it this way and done it like this. And then you could have gone with this type of story. Like, I love listening to John break stuff down like that. So with that being said, like, it's, I do respect everyone who hustle. Like, when I was at WrestleMania, like, I was doing interviews, and the guy next to me, he was telling, I was at Corey Graves or something. And I forgot which site he was working with, but he told them, like, yeah, my shoot job is at Whole Foods. Like, there are, So for anyone out there listening, please, you could do this yourself. I mean, that's the great thing about the world we live in now, especially post-COVID. Technology is available to do stuff from home remotely. But like I said, invest in yourself, invest in good, proper equipment. For most of us, it's not a paying thing. It's like, it's a passion project. Keep your day job, but do this on the side. But, don't give up, put the work in. And like I said, I'm totally down to help out anyone, has questions, collaborate, anything. I'm an open book on all that stuff.
All right. Talk about your shows. Talk about where people can find you.
So from the radio standpoint, so here in the San Francisco Bay Area, I work at 107.7 The Bone. We're the Rock of the Bay, the rock station. If you go to our website, 1077thebone.com. If you're outside the Bay Area, you can stream us online. Or if you're in the Bay Area, just tune on your radio or the app, the Bone app, 1077 The Bone. Follow us on social as well. I produce the morning show, Lamont Antonelli. We're on 6 to 10 a.m. I'm also the assistant program director, so I do all the behind the scenes stuff with Chasta, shout out Chasta, who's our program director. She's been my biggest supporter. She always encourages me to go out and do stuff. Like she says, yeah, go to WrestleMania, get all these interviews, do it. Like she pushes me. So I love Chasta for that. She's like the big sister I never had. But I'm also on the weekends too myself. So I'm on 3 to 8 Saturdays, Sundays 3 to 7. So you want to tune in, you can. Pacific time.
You don't have a day off.
I know. Break fourth wall. I luckily I can record a lot of stuff from home now. On the weekends I'm recording.
Very smart.
But for my actual podcast, In The Kliq, Kliq like the old Kliq group, Shawn Michaels stuff. So KLIQ. So follow us, subscribe to us where we get your podcasts at. We're on all the major podcast platform. Subscribe to us on YouTube.
Who does that show with you?
Oh, so right now I do it with Brian Tronick. So yeah, going back, Jimbo, summer 2020, he left. He just was following other projects. Specifically, he wanted to do wrestling commentary. So he just couldn't do the podcast anymore. So now I do the podcast with Brian Tronick. Great guy. I love working with Brian. We've been doing it for about over a year now. He's awesome. He's amazing talent as well. As far as he has a great positive outlook on things too. So I love working with Brian Tronick. Follow him at Brian Tronick. But yeah, at In The Kliq on social media, inthe_kliq@gmail.com. And if you want to follow me on my social media, Baby Huey Official on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Baby Huey83. And sorry, that was a mouthful of everything. But yeah, I'm all over the place if you couldn't tell already.
No, yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, we the four of us should need to do something together. That would be a lot of fun too. I'm into collaboration and projects and stuff. So, okay, this dude gave me 61 minutes of his time, and he's got to work early in the morning. Man, you were great. I really appreciate you coming on. I'm glad that we finally did this. Look forward to doing this again, and maybe we do get to do something together.
Absolutely. I'm like Gunther in the Royal Rumble right now. I'm going the distance, which people say I look like Gunther. For everyone who couldn't tell, like I'm 6'4" in real life, and I have a similar haircut like him. So when I interviewed Imperium last year, I told him that, like, dude, everyone thinks I look like you. So we got a photo. If you go on my Instagram and scroll down, you can see a photo, side-by-side photo of him and I together. So we're separated at birth. But awesome. No, thank you. Yeah, anytime, I'm totally down to do it. I love this stuff. And he said, I got the equipment here, so I'm willing to jump on and do anything. So thank you. And thank you everyone for listening to me tell my story. So hopefully find it entertaining.
So we will we'll figure out another way to connect. But this is good stuff. If you are in the Bay Area, you probably already know Baby Huey, and you're a wrestling fan. But if not, check him out. Thanks again, man. So for Baby Huey, I'm Double G. We'll see you when we see you. Peace out.